Hi everybody, it's Ashley. I just want to start this video right off the bat by apologizing for the lighting in my last few videos. I've been struggling a little bit with trying to find the right spot to film, so please let me know down below if you think this lighting is a little bit better. I really wanted to keep my bookshelf in my videos, but I'm not sure if that's going to happen. It's just turning out way too dark. I apologize for that. That aside, let's jump right into the video. I'm going to be doing my July TBR as well as the Reading Rush Challenge. This is going to be my first year participating in a challenge on BookTube, and I'm super excited, but very nervous at the same time. So let's jump right on into it. I'm going to start first with the books that I will be reading that won't have anything to do with the challenge, and then I will end by talking about the challenge. So let's get started. The first book that I'm going to be reading this month is Insomnia by Stephen King. I've actually already started this one, but I know I'm not going to finish it this month. To be honest, so far it's not one of my favorites of his, but it's still a very interesting story about an elderly man who has lost his wife to a brain tumor, and his sleep starts lessening more and more, little at a time, until he's eventually not sleeping at all. And I'm not that far into it yet, so I can't really speak for where it's going to go. But it's my understanding that he begins to see things that other people that are sleeping properly cannot see. So I'm interested to see if the story picks up when it gets to that point. But right now I'm just kind of like, on it. Not loving it, not hating it. The next book that I'm going to be reading is The Search by Nora Roberts. This was part of my June book haul, and I love Nora Roberts' writing, and I'm eager to get into this one. It's the story of a girl who survives a serial killer when she is younger and years later becomes the target of a copycat. I think that sounds really interesting, and I can't wait to read more about it. Next, I'm going to be reading The Mentor by Lee William Goldberg. I have actually never heard of this author before. I don't know if this is a debut or not, but it sounds really interesting. It's about this guy who is an editor, and he has this mentor that he really greatly looks up to, and he's asked to edit this novel or something that I'm not exactly sure from his mentor, and he's completely honored. But when he starts to work on it, he sees that it's like completely depraved and decides to turn it down, and the mentor turns on him and starts targeting him, becoming obsessive. So I think that's an interesting turn of pace, because it's normally the other way around in these kinds of stories. So I want to see where it goes. I can't wait to dive into it. The next book that I'm going to be reading is one that has been highly hyped here on BookTube. The whole series has, actually, for quite a long time, and I've put off reading it for that very reason, but I figure it's time to jump in now, and that is Stalking Jack the Ripper by Kerri Maniscalco. I've always been interested in the premise of this series, but with all the hype that it's getting, I decided to wait a while to read it. Overly hyped books I tend to not enjoy as much if I read them at the time, because I feel like I always end up being disappointed. So I always like for the talk to wear down a little bit before I jump into something, just so I don't have overly high expectations and end up disappointing myself, because I don't want to be getting myself worked up for a story that is perfectly good and telling myself in the end, that wasn't that good. I didn't enjoy that. I don't want to do that to myself, and I don't want to have a biased opinion in my reviews on my videos either. So I figure it's time. I believe that the last book in the series is coming out later this year. I'm not sure of the exact date. I will check on that for you guys. But I'm ready to finally dive in and get started and see where all of the hype was for this. And in the same vein, for the very same reason, I am just now getting to Shatter Me by Tahereh Mafi. I know that hype has kind of been coming back a little bit for these books because there's been a couple of new releases in the series recently, but I haven't heard that much about the original book in quite a long time, so I am ready to dive into the story and give it everything I've got. This is about a girl whose touch is lethal. I don't know that much more about it. I tend to click off of spoilery reviews because I hadn't read it yet and I didn't want anything to be spoiled for me. So that's really all that I know about it at this point. But I am interested in the premise and I can't wait to read it and see where that goes. The next book that I am going to be reading is The Girl in 6E by A.R. Torre. This is part of a trilogy. I haven't heard that much about the second two books in the series. I've heard a lot about this one. And it's about a woman who has murderous tendencies and locks herself in her apartment so that she is not tempted to kill. I think that is a very, very interesting twist for somebody to lock themselves away because they believe they are the danger instead of believing they are in danger, which is much more common. So I can't wait to see where this goes, what kind of twists are in it that I may or may not be able to figure out. It sounds super exciting to me. And now I'm going to be jumping into the books for the Reading Rush Challenge. There are 7 challenges with this, and I have 6 books. I'm combining 2 of them. The first challenge and the second challenge I'm going to combine, and those are read a book with purple on the cover and read a book in the same spot the entire time. I had a hard time choosing this one because I don't have very many books with purple, so I ended up settling on Rose Madder by Stephen King. It's not a deep purple. I'm not sure if you can even tell on screen, but there's like a lot of kind of pinkish purple tones, so I decided that that would be good enough, and I'm going to go ahead and use this for those 2 challenges. It's a little bit on the shorter side for one of his books, but I wasn't planning on reading it until later, but I plan on reading all of his work this year anyway, and this fits into the challenge, so I figure I might as well go ahead and read it now. The next challenge is a book you meant to read last year. There are so many of these. I have such a big TBR, it's hard to keep track of all of them, but I am going to go ahead and go with Insurgent by Veronica Roth. And the reason that I am choosing this one is because I loved Divergent, the first book in the series. I absolutely loved it, but I went through a period where I got tired of dystopians. They were everywhere for the longest time. And I got to where I wasn't enjoying them as much, so I knew that I needed to take a step back, not read them for a little while, so that I could get everything out of it that I possibly could, and that meant stopping before finishing this series. So, and then I meant to read it again last year, and it just kept falling to the bottom of my TBR. So I'm going to take this opportunity now to jump back into it and finally finish the series. The next challenge is read an author's first book. I read this years ago. They stated in the challenge video it does not have to be a new release. So I am going to go with Where the Heart Is by Billy Letts. I read this years and years ago. I loved it. I've been meaning to reread it for a long time. It's a very heartwarming story. It takes place in the South. I'm from Texas originally, so I really miss the South. This is an opportunity for me to kind of go back to my roots, explore, have some memories, and a really engaging story about a down-on-her-luck teen who is abandoned in a Walmart store in Oklahoma. And the friends that she makes along the way after this life-changing event that seems to be the worst thing that could have possibly ever happened to her ends up being the best thing that could have happened for her. I love the turn that the story takes there, that it was fated. This is where she was supposed to end up. It's horrible that it happened that way, but I love that that's the way it ended up in the end, and I want to reread it. I've been wanting to reread it for a long time, and this is Billy Lett's first book. She didn't have very many titles. I don't know why, but I will be reading this for that challenge. The next challenge is read a book with a non-human main character. This is quite a tricky little challenge, but I believe I'm going to have to go with Cujo by Stephen King. Now, this one I have not read yet, but it's my understanding that a good portion of this book takes place from the perspective of the dog. And for those of you who do not know, Cujo is actually about a family that gets trapped in a car because they are trying to keep away from a rabid dog. And I heard that most of the book takes place from the perspective of the dog. I'm not sure exactly how much, but I think it counts. I think it counts. I'm going to go ahead and say that it counts and read this for that, because I honestly could not figure out anything else. Okay, and the next challenge was pick a book with 5 or more words in the title. For this, I'm going to be going with The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware. I was in love this month with The Death of Mrs. Westaway by Ruth Ware. So I knew I wanted to read another one of her works fairly quickly. The title matches the challenge, so in the pile it goes. I can't wait to read it. And the last challenge is read and watch a book-to-movie adaptation. So for that, since I'm already going to be reading Insurgent, I'm also going to read Allegiant by Veronica Roth. And I'm going to watch both movie adaptations after I have completed the books. So I guess you could say that Insurgent fits for that as well, but Allegiant is the one that I am specifically counting as part of that challenge because it is the last book in the series, unless you count the novellas 4, which I don't believe that's a sequel. I believe it is just from the perspective of 4. If I'm wrong, please let me know. But I don't believe it's a direct sequel to the series. I believe this is the official end. And so I figured this would be the perfect book for the challenge so that I can finish the book series and the movie series at the same time and kind of wrap it up with a nice, pretty little bow in a way. Okay, so that is my entire July TBR. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you want reviews for any of these books, make sure to leave a comment down in the comments below. And if you enjoy the video, like and subscribe. And leave me a comment down below. I hope I can get to all of these books. It's very ambitious, especially the 6 books for the Reading Rush Challenge. That challenge, if you didn't know, is going to be running from July 22nd to July 28th, and I will leave a link in the description down below to the original video. But that is all for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.